We want every record that they have, every video camera, every 911 call. We want to review the evidence for ourselves and determine the extent to which their constitutional rights were violated. But that's not enough, because what the police officers did was perpetuate the racism of an individual woman. And what we want is we want the neighbor that placed this racist, we want the neighbor Sure. I'm an attorney.
She asked me for the cameras to identify yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Attorney Jasmine Rand, and I'm representing.
We have to muddle through some of this, I think. Go ahead.
Oh. You may want to violate, introduce everybody again, and then go to your point about the neighbor after the.
Okay. So why don't we just do it at the end then, and I'll just keep going now. The revolution has been televised, right? So most importantly, there was an individual that placed this racist call with false allegations to the Rialto Police Department on April 30th, and we want her held accountable. Under the laws of the state of California and the laws of most states throughout this nation, if a person places a false or misleading call to law enforcement, they can be held criminally liable for endangering the lives of others. And that's one of the most important things that we want to see is the Rialto Police Department to open a criminal investigation into the neighbor that placed a call that day, racially motivated call with misleading and false allegations that led to the violation of the constitutional rights of Danisha, Comey, and Kelly. Individuals need to be held accountable too. As many of you probably know, Attorney Benjamin Crump and I both worked on the Trayvon Martin case and represented the family of Trayvon Martin. And when I heard the neighbor refer to Comey and Danisha and Kelly as suspicious, what I heard is the same thing that made them suspicious to her, to this neighbor, is the same thing that made Trayvon Martin suspicious to George Zimmerman, and that's the color of their skin. And my position has only been strengthened from the time that this neighbor, that the homeowner went to a press conference and said that the three people behind us could have avoided this entire situation if not only had they waved to her neighbor to put her at ease, but they also needed to smile at her neighbor. Now I can tell you, every one of them, Danisha, Comey, Kelly, they smile all the time. They smile when they feel love, they smile when they feel happiness. But they have a right not to smile. They have a right not to smile on command at the behest of a white woman who would choose to place a racist call and endanger their lives and violate their constitutional rights because they didn't smile at her that day. We don't want to live in an America where black people are forced to smile at white people to preserve their lives. I'll make a few comments later, but next I want to turn over the microphone to Danisha Prendergast so she can share her experience and her story with you.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
Yeah, greetings. My name is Danisha Prendergast, and I'm representing today for the voices of the ones who are unable to tell their story. What happened to us is nothing new from what happens daily to African Americans on this land that doesn't even belong to any one of us who is standing here in this circle this morning. This morning we got a call from the Métis. This morning we got a message. We got a message from the Métis people to say that they stand with us in this fight. And I think that is very important to note because my ancestors were brought here on ships as slaves. And still today we reflect on that memory. Tomorrow makes 37 years since my grandfather transitioned from this physical plane. And the messages that he was speaking from that time are still so relevant today and into tomorrow. We don't need no more trouble. What we need is love. We're still weeping for the living, and we're still weeping for the dead. We're weeping for the struggle. I am not a fighter. This is Harlem, y'all. It's real life, right? Every day. It's an honor to be standing here in the heart of where many of the movements that I revere was born. I was born in privilege. I grew up in privilege. And I think what those police officers from Rialto met a few days ago, white privilege met upon black privilege. And they didn't really know how to deal with it. And when I say black privilege, I'm not talking about the black privilege that you would think that the Marley name carries. I'm talking about the black privilege of knowing that I come from a line of kings and queens beyond this time. Which is what I want to remind the people of today. Representation is important. Representation is important. And I don't look like many people would want me to be. But the reality is, we are not as different as we think we are. And we have to continue to create safe spaces for everyone to understand that. Blood, black and white, we bleed the same color. What happened on that day, Monday the 30th of April, was wrong. Just because I am here living to tell this story doesn't make it any more right. Just because I wasn't bound and handcuffed against the ground, my blood is not running in the streets, doesn't make it any less violent. What happened to all of us is indignity. There was no respect and no honor. One Love is a song that the world loves to sing. But what I am challenging the world right now to do is make One Love into an action. Because One Love is action. The number one is not a singular number. It is collective. So let us see in these moments, we can find the grace and the space to have these hard conversations. Because what happened is that I almost died because somebody was afraid of me. But I'm not afraid of you. I just want to love.
Denisha, before you go up, Denisha, can you tell us how it's been reported that you did not raise your hands when the police told you to raise your hands? Can you tell us about that and whether you feared for your safety?
I grew up Rastafari. We don't have a lot of fear for the system. We see and acknowledge the system. And we try to create solutions and spaces for us to grow and create new models of coexistence. When the officer pointed and told us to put our hands up, I said no. I said no because I was not about to allow you to see me as a criminal on our first meeting. I said no because I have the right to be right. And you are wrong. In this moment, you are wrong. And in every instance that we could, we expressed to them that you're making a bad mistake right now. But there is no protocol for de-escalation in these moments. Protocol superseded humanity. And that is a problem.
When the police chief says that his men handled things with respect in the field, what do you say?
We're going to let...
I'll let someone else speak.
We're going to answer some questions.
Yeah, we'll answer some more questions in a little bit.
Kelly, you want to go? Yeah.
So my name is Kelly Fife Marshall. I was born in England and I reside in Toronto, Canada. I'm a filmmaker and I make films about these situations, and I've been making films about these situations. And so for it to happen to us, it was just a crazy moment. I feel like it happened to the right people, because we are the people that were on this movement before. Me, Denisha, and Comey were on a movement to stop this. And so now they're in this situation, we hope that we can use this platform to stop this from happening anymore. From the Waffle House, from what happened in the Waffle House, to what just happened in the Yale dorms, to all the things that are coming up, it's getting out of hand. And now it seems as a black person, you can't live. There's nothing you can do without being called on the cops because you're suspicious for doing whatever you're doing. We were coming out of our Airbnb. We had been volunteering for the last 2 days We were going to LA to volunteer, and we were suspicious because we were taking hand luggage out of the Airbnb. We'd already been there for 2 days. And so, just to follow up with what Denisha said, it's about just sharing love now. We just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and we stop what's happening, because this is getting out of hand. And especially as Canadians coming here, a lot of people feel like this is just an American issue, and we coming here have to deal with it too, because when I'm here, I'm just black. You don't see that I'm British, you don't see I'm Jamaican, and you don't see that I'm Canadian. You just see a black woman.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Komi Olaf. I'm an Afrofuturist, a visual artist, and a poet. I'm originally from Nigeria. And basically, the only thing I have to say in regards to this is I wonder what the neighbor saw that caused her to be afraid of me, because I carry myself as a very peaceful man, and I preach love with my art and change, and I thought that was very evident. Now, yesterday we met with some youth at the Exalt Center, and they were telling me how this is a regular occurrence for them. Like, they expect to be stopped by the police. They expect this, and it's something new for me. This was the first time I've ever been stopped by the police, and it was a traumatic experience. It took me about a week to completely soak in the narrow escape. So I hope that through all of this, we'll be able to find a resolution that prevents this from happening to people in the future. You know, I don't want people to be afraid of black people because of the way they look, or because they look different, or afraid of the other. Thank you.
Tell me specifically what was so frightening about that moment.
I saw a knife. That was what scared me. That's it.
Again, I'm Attorney Benjamin Crump. I have the honor, along with Attorney Jasmine Rand, representing these brave young people, these very intelligent, law-abiding young people who did absolutely nothing wrong to suggest that they were criminals in any way. And we all have a responsibility here today. Airbnb has a responsibility to notify people in the neighborhood that, yes, we serve all customers of all ethnicities. African Americans will be renting homes of Airbnb, and we don't expect that white neighbors are going to be allowed to racially profile and prejudge African Americans when they rent these properties where they are detained and humiliated, and their civil rights and their human rights are grossly violated. Think about this, if you would. Most people can't fathom what these young people had to endure. Because of the color of their skin, they had to prove that they were not guilty. Is this what we are coming to? You are guilty until proven innocent? This isn't South Africa apartheid. What's next? Would they have to have cars and permits to say that they're allowed to be in a certain place? We have to hold those officers accountable to treating everybody with the dignity and respect that all citizens deserve. They came there and watch the video. Don't take our word for it. They said, prove to us that you are not stealing, based on this one phone call of a lady who said they didn't wave at me and they didn't smile at me, so the black people were stealing. That is really what her conclusion was. And you have to try to put that in context. As Attorney Rand said, there were 4 individuals, 3 black people and 1 white person. She had no problem with the white person not speaking to her or smiling at her. But when black people did not show deference to her, she said they must be criminals. They must be up to something nefarious. And this is a problem. As Darnisha, Comey, and everybody pointed out, that they had no idea why 7 police cars rushed up on them and why a helicopter overhead was looking and directing attention to them because they knew they had not broken any laws. And it comes down to the point that the police officers have really no reasonable, articulable suspicion to detain these young people for almost 45 minutes to prove their existence, to prove that they had a right to be in this space. That's the problem that we have, while the police will make them have to prove their innocence. In America, you're innocent until proven guilty. And the last point I will make before we answer questions is this here. As Attorney Rand told you, we did have the honor and the privilege of representing Trayvon Martin. And when you go back and listen to that 911 call from another person suspicious of a black body, I believe just because of the color of their skin, and you see the tragic end 6 years ago to unarmed Trayvon Benjamin Martin, and then you think about Jonathan Crawford in Ohio, Beaver Creek, Ohio, a white woman called on a black man minding his business, and you saw what happened when the police came and interacted with him. I believe, again, listen to that 911 call of that white individual calling on a black person, and then listen to this 911 call. We demand to have that 911 call made to the public, and you will understand the concern and the fear of every black person who is accosted by the police with no provocation. They did nothing wrong, but we know just by having black skin, that could be an indictment that could end your life. And so we're here now, thank God, not because this ended fatally, but because we want to prevent future fatalities of black people by those who are supposed to protect and serve them, just because a white person felt fear, just because a white person was ignorant, just because a white person thought that I'm going to call the police because I'm suspicious of this black person. That's not right. And that's what we're here to rail against today, tomorrow, and forever.
And we also, before...
You said you put the department on notice that you are planning to sue, or are you saying if you don't get all this information, you will sue, or where are we with that?
So, those are some really good points that we have to address. And first, we have to recognize the fact that Airbnb has already stepped up before we even reached out to them on their own, and that they have taken corporate responsibility, and they've said we don't want to see black and brown people discriminated against while they're staying in our places. And they've reached...
This wasn't a licensed Airbnb.
This was... We don't know. I'm not going to speak to something I don't know. I've read the articles, but we don't know whether or not it was licensed. But let me finish my point, is that Airbnb has stepped up and taken corporate responsibility for this, and that's really important. We want to see corporations, we want to see the public and private sector working together to combat discrimination. Not only has Airbnb stepped up and said we're taking corporate responsibility, we recognize the trauma that you experienced, and that we want to meet with the Rialto Police Department and the mayor to see how we can rectify what happened to you and to ensure that black and brown people are protected when they're staying on our properties. Not only did Airbnb step up, the mayor of Rialto reached out and sent a message to Danisha and Kelly and Comey, and she said, I'm sorry I was out of town, but I'm sorry that you had this experience while staying in my city, and I would love to meet you in person. But guess who didn't step up to the plate? Rialto Police Department didn't step up to the plate. Instead, Rialto Police Department held a press conference. They held a press conference simply because I sent a letter to their office asking them to provide us with the documents and the evidence for us to review about what happened to that day. We want to see the body cams. We want to see the video. We want to see the 911 calls. I do not yet have a response to my public records request, but instead they held a press conference. and they leaked certain videos out to the public to try to make it look like these people behind me were committing some type of a crime. And who did they stand by at that press conference? Did they call my clients? Did they call Danisha? Did they call Kelly? Did they call Comey and say, come stand by us and let's rectify this situation? We know that you were not committing any crime that day now. We know that this woman placed a racist call to 911, and we're sorry for perpetuating her racism and violating your constitutional rights. They didn't call my clients. They called the homeowner. And then the homeowner stood beside them and sent an incredibly irresponsible social message to everybody in that community. And what the police stood beside this woman and said, black people, when you see a white woman, you don't just have to wave at her, but smile. And if you don't smile, you might get detained. You might get locked up. You might end up like Michael Brown. You might end up like Trayvon Martin. I refuse to allow my clients to apologize for being alive today. And that seems to be what a lot of people want them to do. They want them to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't bleeding face down on concrete. I'm sorry I wasn't Sanford on the grass. I'm not sorry they're alive. I'm thankful they're alive. I'm thankful they're here to tell the story. Black voices cannot be something that's only heard from beyond the grave. Black voices need to be heard here and now.
Hey, I will say this. Airbnb, there's an issue, and it's pervasive. And so Airbnb, there is an issue, and it is pervasive. When African Americans rent properties from Airbnb, we notice there's a pattern with neighbors saying that they don't feel comfortable with African Americans renting property. So we have to get this out in the open. We have to discuss it, because we're thankful that they were not killed or physically assaulted by the police, but we know from the Waffle House video and many other instances that when black people have interaction with police, because white people have problems with their presence, that it doesn't always end up good. That's number one. Number two, note what Attorney Rand said at the press conference. Danisha, Kelly, or Comey should have smiled and waved, and everything would have been okay. So they're putting the burden on them, the victims. They're blaming the victims for not smiling, not blaming the white woman for making a racist 911 call. That's not what they did. They embraced her, but they shunned them for not smiling and waving at a white lady. That is a problem.
Can we get Danisha, Comey, and Kelly at the microphone?
Certainly.
All right.
Well,
Who was the fourth one? Was she connected to you, or did she just happen
Yeah.
to be?
Well, the fourth woman, her name is Ashley, and she's working with them. She's a photographer who travels with Danisha on a regular basis. And, you know, we'll discuss more about her. We don't want to speak for her, but she was there and she was present and she was checking out at the same exact time that they were checking out.
Let's get all three.
And what it does, just to add to that point, Ashley has been traveling with me for the past 7 years as my assistant and documentation director. And this black and white conversation, it has only helped to strengthen our relationship and our resolve about the work that is necessary to be done.
Continuity. You want glasses on or off? So we can vote. But can you just...
Going forward, what would you like to see happen?
That's a big question. Going forward, what I'd like to see happen.
Specifically with the police and this meeting.
Yeah, man, we want to meet with the Rialto Police Department. We will meet with the mayor. We will meet with Airbnb. We will meet with the neighbor. We will meet with the homeowner. We will meet with the community members, ones who have been affected by this moment and even before this moment, because we are ambassadors and vehicles for whatever message it is that the universe is trying to transmit right now. What we need is more love. I've already said that, and whatever steps that we need to take to ensure that that happens, we want to. Policy change is necessary. We exist in a system that was created before us. It was created with colonial intentions by colonial minds. When are we going to be brave enough to acknowledge this and to evolve from this place? His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia, one of my favorite quotes, we must become something for which we have never been. We must become greater in outlook. We must become something for which our environment and education has ill prepared us. We must become members of a brand new race, overcoming petty prejudice to achieve the ultimate allegiance, which is not to nations, but to human beings. The struggle is long before this time, and we will not give up the fight. Grandma, these moments are for you. You know that. These moments are for you, for our ancestors. We stand on your shoulders.
Can you walk us through what happened and tell us your first reaction when you saw the police arriving? Wow.
Yeah, our first reaction, when I was the one driving the car, and so as soon as the car pulled in front of me and we put our hands up, me and Denisha had already seen the lady across the street, but she was very far, the neighbor, and so we just saw her on the phone. We didn't see a wave and we didn't see a smile. And so when we saw her, we looked, and I joked with Denisha, she's going to call the police, because as black people, that's an occurrence. When you see someone and they're looking at you, you're like, they're probably going to call the police.
And I didn't take it anyway because we were busy. We were on our business.
Yeah, and so when we drove down a couple cars down, and the cars all surrounded us, the first thing that came out of my mouth, my window was already open, my hands were up, and I said, we're in Airbnb. Because we knew exactly what was happening. We didn't think it was going to happen, but we knew. And so the first thing we said was, we are an Airbnb, and we continue to say it as the police officers got closer to the car. We continued to be like, we're an Airbnb. This is a misunderstanding. We're an Airbnb. Can
you tell us where the cops were around you? Just how many? What was the scene like?
Well, there was one cop came to my window, another cop came to Kelly's window, and the cop that came to my window, when I told him we're coming from Airbnb, his first question was, what is Airbnb? So because I really believe that cops are coming from a good place, and when that happened, I decided to start explaining what Airbnb was to him, until I realized that this was not an honest question. Something else was going on here.
So you also want, again, you said that it's important to you that the woman who called face some kind of consequence.
She has to be held accountable.
The neighbor, she has to be held accountable. I mean, what she did is jeopardize our lives. You see, we were working consistently for that entire weekend on a production. We're filmmakers. He was volunteering, and the night before that, we came in at about 3:34 a.m. looking for a key that the homeowner had left outside for us. At 4 a.m., we are searching outside with our cell phone lights looking for a key. What if it was that moment that the neighbor decided that she wanted to call the police on us?
We wouldn't have had a chance.
We would not have had a chance to say, no, I will not put my hands up. Are you serious right now? I would not have had that chance. We would not have had that chance, and that is what we're trying to say. It is not right just because we lived. It's not right. What did you want to happen? The neighbor, what did you want to happen? Do you not understand how you jeopardize our lives because of your fear? The 911, the person who answered the 911 call, did you not have the discernment when she said 3 black people are taking luggage out of a house? Did you not have the discernment, the consciousness to say, are you sure they're not guests? It escalated even further when the police got on the scene. We tried to clear it up, and then the captain,
or the sergeant, yeah.
When the sergeant came on the scene, the whole tone changed. He had the audacity to be cleaning his nails with a switchblade. You're talking to me about dignity and respect? Watch it. We know about dignity and respect. We treated you all with dignity and respect. What we did on that day is also save the lives and the embarrassment of those police officers from making a huge mistake. A huge mistake. So in these moments, let us acknowledge this history, this heritage, this legacy that we have inherited. Let us acknowledge this history, this heritage, and this legacy that we all have inherited as black and white people of this world. How are we going to reimagine ourselves for our children and for the children of our children?
Janisha, can you talk about how you all tried to call the owner, and even when the owner was telling them that you all had a legal right to be there, they still didn't think that was good enough? That was not enough proof.
Yeah, well, the word the word of a black person versus the word of a white person, I don't even need to explain it. Why is it that I have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times that we were guests, we were paying,
start from the beginning. She's just explaining how they had to prove to the police, they had to get the owner of the house on the phone, and even when they got her on the phone, that still wasn't good enough. The police said, we still have to verify this.
Oh yeah.
So,
When we showed them the reservation, we showed them the receipts, we showed them even the message that the owner had sent to us just minutes before to say how beautiful the experience was. We were her first guests. She was so happy to host us. Go out into the world, white lights, shine your light. She's looking forward to meeting us again. And then moments later, her neighbor calls the police on us. The police come down with no sound. Just lights. Like, I want to know what would have happened. You know, there's so many what ifs that I cannot not stand up in these moments and say something.
but please explain to them how when y'all got the lady on the phone, they still said, we got to investigate this. Y'all can't leave yet. It's almost like...
Even after the app, like we showed them the Airbnb app, it had the address, it had the lady's photo, it had the date, and the exact time that we were standing there, our checkout date and time. And they looked at the app and said, how do we know this is real? Like, these are police officers looking at an Airbnb app in this world, and they're saying, how do we know it's real? Because obviously we've made an app.
In 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes with this date and this time, and for this exact purpose, for when we steal with hand luggage. Not full luggage, hand luggage.
In terms of the lawsuit, where are you with that? You gave them notice, but you're holding off on filing?
There's been a lot of misinformation about a lawsuit. I just want to clear up the fact that there has been no lawsuit filed. What we are doing now is we've requested all of the documents, evidence, and information and place them on notice of the possibility of future litigation. We want to investigate for ourselves exactly what happened that day and then determine from there how best to rectify that situation.
Can you say and spell your first and last name to everybody so we
Yes.
can write?
My name is Jasmine Rand, Jasminerand, and I'm an attorney with Rand Law, LLC.
An actual notice of claim, or you just told them we want
We did not file a notice of claim, so it's a little bizarre that they chose to hold a press conference. We sent a notice of representation, a notice for them to preserve their evidence, and a request for public records.
And we're in New York because Tanisha, do you live in New York?
No.
Hold on. We were doing some interviews here. You want to state and spell your name? That's why we're here. We're
So
doing
my name is
interviews.
Kelly Fife Marshall. It's KELLYFYFFE. Yeah. Start again? Okay, so it's Kelly Fife Marshall. KELLYFYFFE hyphen MARSHALL. Fife Marshall.
My name is Komi Olafimihan. That's KOMI hyphen OLUWA. And my last name is Olafimihan, OLAFIMIHAN. I also go by Komi Olaf, KOMIOLAF.
Hold on. Danisha, go ahead.
Talk about why we're in New York.
No,
Yeah,
spell
one
your
moment.
name. Yeah.
My name is Donisha Prendergast, DONISHA PRENDERGAST, with a smiley face, because I signed my signature with a smiley face at the end ever since I was 13 years old.
The question was, you guys from New York? Is that why we're here?
No, we had an interview here. That's why we were here.
Tanisha, you and Kelly and Komi, you had talked about, you made a reference to the Yale incident. I mean, there's been obviously such a spate, right, of people, black and brown people, the Native American students on the tour at the University of Colorado, black and brown people just being, right, in various gulfs, leaving an Airbnb, and this policing of their presence. Can you talk a little bit about that, like the frustration of, right, and why you think that means that this woman needs to face consequences?
Well, I just wanted to mention quickly, one of the other reasons why we are in New York is to touch base with the youth, because we do a lot of work as activists within the community, and how this universe has worked out this story is before we even came and spoke to the media, because it's taken us a few days to get here. because we had other things that we were doing that are important, like spending time with my grandma, like spending time with our families. Speaking to some young people yesterday and showing them the video, and their response, it was normal. Police brutality, they're like, oh yeah, this happens to us all the time. They're 15, 14, 13 years old. So we were doing research. We're continuing to do research. We're continuing to create spaces to have conversations with the people who are really affected by these moments every day.
Tell them where you're going to speak later today.
Today? Tomorrow? Oh yeah, we're going to a juvenile detention center just after this to do a tour.
Hey, just one important point on what you said. It is happening at Yale. It's happening at Waffle House in Alabama, in Colorado. These callers, a lot of people don't have the profile that these young people have, and certainly Darnisha, with being the granddaughter of Bob Marley, using that platform to say it's not right for me and it's not right for those two young African Americans who were on the tour in Colorado. It's not right for the Yale student, but we have to focus attention on not the black people who are being victimized by this, but the white people who keep calling on black people for being black in a neighborhood. This is America. We thought we have already fought and won this battle in the 60s, but now we're having to relitigate battles that were already won, we believe. And that's a problem. But we're here on the front line, especially with Comey, Kelly, and Darnisha, to say, draw attention to the caller, not to the victims.
Can I ask as well, have you had any interaction at all with the neighbor who called?
We're not going to answer that at this time.
Okay.
But she has not publicly apologized or admitted.
She did not. Let me answer that. She did not publicly apologize. She publicly disparaged them. So she went to the press conference. Are you talking about the caller or the homeowner?
I was talking about the caller.
Not the caller, but the homeowner, like I said earlier, went to the press conference with the police and publicly disparaged them and backed up her neighbor and said not only should they have waved, but they should have smiled to have avoided the incident.
And you guys are hoping to meet with them and have a conversation.
We are hoping to meet with them and have a conversation in the presence of the Rialto Police Department and with the mayor, and my understanding is that Airbnb would also like to attend that meeting. So we look forward to the discussion with Rialto Police Department.
Okay.
You would like an apology, which you have not gotten.
We would like an apology, which we have not gotten. But we want more than an apology. We want an action, and an action that corrects what happened to them, and an action that's going to correct future generations, that's going to protect our children.
So I just want to clarify as well, you were saying you didn't want to comment on whether you had any interaction from the person who made the call. Have you had any?
We have not had any interaction from the person that made the call. No, none.
Okay.
Do you think that's what it's going to take, though, right? Again, like that until people start having consequences for the call, right? We're calling someone who's calling on the police on someone who's trying to move into their building. Is that what we need before?
I think it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that's.
Can I get to the mic?
I think that's one of the things that we need to focus on is holding people accountable, and so they don't step out and feel like it's okay to call 911 all the time, because that's ridiculous. But also, just fear alone. Like it could happen walking down the street anywhere. So it has to be where black people are seen as people, just regular people, and so there's no fear. So I think it's a bit of both. And so I think us coming out and speaking and using our platform to make sure that we can show that, like when the lady saw me, she saw a black person, but she didn't see that I'm a filmmaker and that I make films about social injustices to help my black community. And she didn't see what I do. She didn't know that I was British. She didn't know that I was Canadian. She didn't know anything about me. She just saw a black face across the street and was like, she's stealing. And so I think that we need to start seeing each other as people. And I think that's important to somehow change the society. So when you see a black face, you're like, oh, that's just a regular person.
And I know you guys mentioned before that Airbnb was stepping up in terms of their corporate responsibility. Are you satisfied with
I think we need to have a long conversation with Airbnb, because this seems to be a pattern in America, and this has to be resolved.
And have you arranged a meeting with them?
We're waiting for them to contact us now. Okay.
Thank you all for coming out and for listening, and more love, right? Tomorrow, just hold a moment of silence. It's been 37 years since my grandfather transitioned, and let's remember, one love is action, not just a song that you dance to. We give thanks. Jaliv.
A quick walk and talk for you guys.
Yeah. Wait, we should go to that. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to, it was the 18th. We wanted to use the material that you posted in your permission.
I don't think we should sign it. I don't want to sign anything because, you know, there's been so many versions that have gone out. I don't know what they've generated and what they haven't.
Well, the thing that you posted from the original, of the actual thing, right? We want to reuse it in our news reports. And I'm saying, yeah, social media. So
We're going to issue a version today. We're going to issue a video today.
A longer version.
Even that, we